What's up, everybody? I'm Jason, this is Freebird Garage, and we are prepping the clamshell paint job for pinstriping. All right, we got some wet sanding we got to get into and figure out how we're going to design these in order to get the proper pinstriping to OEM. All right, let's get to it. So pinstriping the clamshells for my FXRT project. These are Conley shells behind me. I've refurbished them. I've bondoed, I've cleaned them up, fiberglass, everything the best to my abilities from what the damage was. Looks like some kind of accident they were in, unfortunately, but we've gotten to the point where they are smooth and good to go, all right? So I've painted them all red at this point, and this is just our undercolor from what we're gonna be painting it, which will be black over it, but we need to get it prepped for the pinstriping design. So right now, got a bit of a rough feel on here, and we're gonna wet sand these down. And this is my way of doing it. It's kind of a cross between the way I guess you should do it and the way that I'm doing it. And I've already done it on a fairing that came out pretty well and looks very OEM from what it was before. So if you haven't seen an 88 FXRT, I'll put it up there so you guys can see what it looks like and what the pinstriping is gonna be aiming for. So what we need to do is we're gonna wet sand these down to 1,000 grit. And then if everything looks good, we will get everything dried off. And then from there, start designing the pinstriping that we're gonna use to go over this. And once I'm pretty much set with that, then we'll get into eventually the painting of the black that's gonna go over these clamshells. This is just a process that, like I said before in my previous videos, this is like a factory way of doing pinstriping. You can do ways that are much probably more professional maybe in that way. This is more of my DIY that has worked out pretty well. And in the past, I've seen where you paint it red, hit it with clear, pinstripe it, and then you go back and hit it with black. But when I've seen that before, tape tends to slip and move around. So this is where we can still get the tape to stick very well, and we can lay nice thick coat of black across everything, and then peel it off, and then shoot it with clear and get our look that we're looking for. Fingers crossed, all right? So that's what we're gonna go with. We're gonna start wet sanding these down, get to work. So once again, this is my process. It worked out for my fairing just fine, and we're gonna hopefully get the same results doing it this way. So this will be round number 2 of doing it this way. All right, so what we're gonna start off with first is just wetting down the paint, simple as what wet sanding is, making sure we got plenty of water. Now, there is definitely, probably you should use maybe some soap, but I don't have any near close to me. Actually, I think I do. So maybe we'll use that, maybe we won't. We'll see how this goes first. But we're gonna hit it with 1,000 grit is what I'm aiming for. I got one of these two that has a small blemish that we're going to try and attack. Luckily, in this case and scenario, that this red isn't the main finish. So if there's another area that needs a little touch up, don't have to worry about that because we're gonna be shooting black over the main parts, all right? So we'll get this sanded down. It'll make more sense when we get to the pinstriping. So let's start sanding this with the 1,000 grit, and I wanna make sure that our sandpaper is nice and wet. Wetter the better, because it makes everything, one, actually last a lot longer when you're using sandpaper, and two, we don't want it to grab and dig. So that's the goal. Or we're gonna probably have to reshoot this. Luckily there's 2 of these, so the first one we'll know if this is gonna work or not. It should be good. Okay, make sure that we got all the dirt. There we go. What I've found whenever I've wet sanded before, that using your hand, especially on delicate paint, and not being a professional at doing it, knowing how well and how far, using a pad to wrap it on keeps the pressure evenly across so we can just get our nice, smooth, even spots going into it. So we'll do that. What we want to do is just get this glaze of the natural shine of that base coat taken off. I got a blemish up here that I'm going to try and see if we can sand it out. Not looking the greatest, but it may not be in my direct spot where I got to lay this pinstriping down, all right? washing off any of the heavier chunks that sit on the sandpaper, because that'll just drag right through the paint and have a nice dig right into the base coat on here. So far, all right. All right, so I pretty much got this clamshell ready to go to be pinstriped. The last round I got on it pretty much smoothed out where I need to be. Forgot to show you guys that if you have any lights like this when you're doing it, makes it 10 times easier, because you can direct the light right on the spot that you're wet sanding. You can see your highs and lows, essentially where it's, I want to say like shiny versus dull, and that's where I want to be, and have that nice smooth finish across. And taking the water, getting it to the point where it's like glass, all the ripples are gone, and then you can get low to the water. You can see where your highs and lows are at if you want to go any deeper. But in this case, the pinstriping is so minimal that we're going to pretty much have it set the way it is. It looks great, and I don't want to go too crazy because you could go through, of course, the paint. That's the one part of wet sanding base coat that you're not supposed to do, obviously, is that the fear of going right through the paint or showing scratches, and then you're going to see that through the clear. So we got to a point where it's pretty much safe where it's at. I'm gonna hit up a little bit up on the other side here, and we should be good to go. I even have some spots where I'm gonna hit it with like putty again, because I have some divots in there that they're on the outer lip. It's not a big deal. And once we scrape it again with a little bit of spot putty, and when we hit the black, it'll look good. And if you're ever doing this and you wanna know kind of what your clear coat is gonna look like, when you hit it with water, kind of an idea of what the clear coat is going to do. So it's going to take that dullness of what we see and make it pop again. So pretty much right there, I'm going to hit a little bit more, and we will start working on the next clamshell and start rolling through it. All right, so go through on the sides. There's a couple small divots, like very tiny, that I'm smoothing out right now on my sides. And it just gets to a point where it's never gonna be seen, especially once we hit it with the black and the clear. It pretty much buries it and it'll disappear. Around the edges too, I have hit it with this, obviously 1000 grit, and it's already gone right through it, and that's okay. But if I was doing this for the final paint job, we would have to repaint it again. But at least you know how, serious some of this sanding can get into. The corners are the biggest problems when sanding, because it's such a tight area that when you sand right into it, that you can cut right through the paint. So trying to be careful on the outer perimeter of this when I'm sanding, and making sure that we're good to go there. So just a little bit longer, and we're gonna hop on to the next clamshell here. So everything's been sanded down at this point. We're smoothed out. If you see any little white spots, that's from a little spot putty that I did off camera real quick, just to get everything cleaned up a little bit faster and smoothed out. And they shouldn't affect where we are gonna put our lines and where we're gonna go. And what I wanna do is try to mask off where we're not gonna go to give me the same distance of where I want this line to stay with. All right, so there's been a lot of different paint jobs I've seen, the OEM one, and this is the best way that I could find that seems to work. So this is technically the right side of the bike. So what we're gonna try and do is I'm gonna tape off down to the bottom and try to make a straight line to go consistent with. Okay, this is just gonna be our kind of our guideline I'm gonna use. And when I was doing my fairing and all those lines, I had it set up where I kind of had the old lines to mimic, almost trace over. So we got that there, and we're gonna use the same distance up on top. And we'll remove this, of course, once we are done. Probably gonna have to redo this a couple times, but let's get us our starting point. Okay, good there, and probably we'll rework that just a little bit. Okay, don't want to go there. And then when I was looking to see how deep to go on these lines, It seems like it's shallow here, and then it goes deep down here for where it ends and where it starts. So we're gonna try this again on the end here. This is our pinstriping lines. This is the exact thickness that I found that was the OEM. This is, I can't remember what this is, like 7/32, super thin. And this is probably like about 1/8 of an inch. Stuff works really well. Trying to think of the name of the brand of whatever this tape is called, and I don't know it offhand, but it worked out pretty well for the last one. So, see if we can get this to go, okay? And the hardest part is the amount of curves we have to go. And using this like a pencil, all right, that's looking pretty good on that side. So now we got to go down to the corner here, show you guys up here. And you know what? I'm going to tape this point off. So then I'm going to go too wide. So we got that line. Let's see if we can scoop it up this way. Same thing with this tape here. We could do one line. That's actually how this paint job was prior, was one line, but that wouldn't make it full of what we're looking for. So this is the trick part, is trying to steady it with two lines and keeping the distance between the two lines even. And that is a challenge in itself, because the first line looks good. Now, let's see if we can get the second line together here, okay? So start off, do it up here, so it's a little bit easier. Oh, this one corner wants to fight with me here. And our last corner here. All right, let's pull these off, see what we got. All right, and our pinstriping. Bam! Double lines. I'd say that looks pretty close to factory. Sweet. All right, so that's our first one down. Let's get our second one. All right, let's see if we can mimic this again. This is the hard part, is trying to make them exactly close to the same, and we'll see how this goes. All right, so same thing. Let's use this as our bottom marker. How low we're gonna go. All right, and I'm gonna run the tape all the way across this time. I think that's where I kind of might have mistaked myself on the other one. So. And trying to get the right angle. This is the hardest side right here, is trying to get it to come down correctly. Not liking how that's coming already. Seems better. Okay. That might be even a little too wide. All right, so I retaped the lines on this one, and I went back to some of my pictures to see how it's angled, and it's like a straight but narrow corners right up there. So I went a little bit more narrow. We'll see how this one goes. We're still gonna probably have to play with some of this pinstriping. Just kind of figure out where I want it to lay, because that's one thing I've learned of doing this, is that it's what pleases to the eye is pretty much what the end result is. Even if you're close to what you think it is, if your eye looks good on it and you're happy with it, that's essentially the best it's gonna come, in my opinion, right? So I'm sure others will have their opinion, but no one's gonna get their measuring tape out and see how close you are, because pinstriping, I've noticed on any of Harley's, it's always different. I've seen it on factory bikes and everywhere else that they're always inconsistent if you look up straight up to the pinstriping lines. All right, so let's lay this down and see how this looks. First line is looking pretty good. Okay, now to do our skinny line here. The harder one to stretch out. All right, let's remove the big lines, see what we got here. All right, so the left-hand side, I'm pretty sure I got it where I want it for the most part. I think one part of the line is just a little bit too close, but I think the overall side is gonna be good for OEM. Bam, look at that. Left-handed side is looking OEM. Stoked. All right, so we are on the right track. I let this sit for about a day, come back out and see if I like the design again, because I've came back out in my other stuff and just had to redo it because I just thought it looked a little off. The night before it looks great, and I come back out, it's not right. So that's why I'm not gonna paint it all in the same shot right now, because I wanna make sure that it looks good before we can do the final shoot of it. But definitely the left-handed bag is the way to go. The other bag has a little more spacing into it that I wanna change. And there's just one chip. Luckily, it's not with the main pinstriping. That'll just have to fill in real quick and it'll be good to go for paint. All right, but for now, guys, that'll bring me in this one. I'll greatly appreciate if you could hit the subscribe button, tap that like, press the notification, leave a comment below and tell me what you think. And for those who've already subscribed, thank you. And as always, stay free. Catch you guys later. Peace.